Hi, thanks for listening to Crafting Human and being part of our creative tribe. If this conversation resonates with you, please share the episode. Liking and subscribing helps me to keep telling the stories of the creatives who bring soul into our world. If you want me to dive deeper on anything discussed today, let me know in the comments. I'd love to bring those conversations to you in future episodes. Now, on with the show. Welcome to another episode of Crafting Human. My guest today is Sandra Fadayel, an interior designer, artist, and the founder of Inhabitat, a Dubai-based interior design studio with a mission that goes far beyond designing beautiful rooms. Sandra helps global citizens and busy professionals create homes that actually feel like them, not like a showroom, not like a Pinterest board, but like a true expression of who they are and how they live. Sandra's path to this work has been shaped by a life in motion. Born in Amman, Jordan, raised in Bahrain, trained in architecture in the UK, she has called New York, Toronto, Italy, Abu Dhabi, and now present day, she calls Dubai home. That nomadic experience runs through everything she does, both as an interior designer and as a visual artist. Her art practice, which includes large-scale abstract paintings and a new collection called Unmapped, explores ideas of boundaries, borders, and identity, which are deeply personal themes in her own life story. She is the winner of the 2025 Stevie Award for Creative Person of the Year at the International Business Awards, a recognition for both her interior design work and the creative vision behind Inhabitat. In today's conversation, Sandra and I go deep into what home really means when you've spent a lifetime rebuilding it. She shares the childhood moment that planted the seed for everything she does today. We also talk about the client experience that brought her to tears and changed how she understood her own work. This is a conversation about identity, belonging, and the quiet power of the spaces we make for ourselves and call home. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited that you're joining me today on another episode of Crafting Human. I'm so excited to introduce you to my friend and industry colleague, Sandra Fadayel. She is an interior designer in Dubai, living in Dubai, where I also practiced my interior design formerly, almost 10 years ago. But Sandra and I have been longtime friends. We have been not just colleagues in the industry, but we also went to design school together. So it's been really fun to see the evolution of both of our careers from the beginning, early days, into where we're at today. And I especially wanted to take this moment first before we get in to congratulate Sandra on her recent Creative Business Award. So congratulations, Sandra.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for joining us and welcome to
Thank
Crafting
you.
Human.
Oh, thank you for having me, Sharon. It's such an honor to be here, and I'm super excited about what you're doing with Crafting Human, and yeah, I'm super excited about the conversation we're going to have this morning or your evening. So, so super excited and happy to be here.
Thank you. It was interesting as I have been going through my career and evolution in who I am as a designer and, thinking about, interior design and what it means for me. I remember seeing something of yours recently that really just caught my eye because it resonated so much with me and some of my own values. I was wondering if you could share with us, what is it? You've moved out of commercial design,
Yeah.
formerly working with leading companies like Gensler,
Mhm.
and I know you've had many different iterations in your career,
Yeah.
but today in your practice, you're really focusing on the sense of home and what it means, and creating for your clients. Um, this saying that we all know, home is where the heart is, right?
Yeah.
And I just love how you incorporated that ideology into your practice. And what is it in your practice that you're trying to help your clients really try to solve in their living environment?
Yeah, so basically, the mission, if you like, that kind of drives us is to create a sense of home, no matter where that home may be. So a lot of our clients are global citizens, executives, and they tend to the concept of home. You know, you mentioned home is where the heart is.
Yeah.
That adage. I like to see that as a lens that frames home as a place where you ground yourself, especially today in a world that doesn't sit still in such a fast moving world. So the idea of home has become a lot more nuanced and layered. It's no longer a static place, and it's less about geography. It's more about identity, about belonging, um, and that's really what we the mission, if you like, the drive behind Inhabitat, is creating that sense of home for people and that sense of belonging, a place that reflects who they are when that's not always a straightforward answer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you and I both we both traveled quite a
Exactly.
bit and lived in all kinds of different places in the world, and so we definitely know what that's like to move from place to place and create
Yeah.
home in a new country, in a new city. Um, and uh, I know for myself, building home, the sense of home has meant so much as I've moved kind of all over the US and into Dubai as well. So I'm just curious, how did this evolution, because I think you started, if I'm remembering correctly, you were working in commercial design,
Yeah.
um, and then you sort of, how did that story unfold for you where you've
Yeah,
kind of
yeah. So
crystallized your
I mean, this
practice?
is like rewinding years and years, but in a nutshell, yes, I did. I started my career commercial, more corporate interiors, and then moved to hospitality, more boutique firms, and then moved into art consulting as well. I do, alongside interiors, I do art. I have an art practice, but I also love art. So, meeting artists and things like that. So I went into art consulting for the hospitality industry, and then I got to a
Amazing.
place.
That's so amazing. I love that.
No,
You
it
have
was
so many
actually.
facets of your creativity.
Yeah, and it's always, when I stop and kind of look back, the art was always there, and creating spaces or a sense of space, or a sense of a tactile aspect has always been in through the common thread, if you like, throughout my work. um, but I always wanted to be a little bit more autonomous and pursue projects that excited me, that I really liked, and take that kind of agency um, for myself, and that sort of drove the decision to start my own studio, to start my own practice, and then it actually took a while to materialize. It first came as a sketch in a sketchbook. I wrote the words "in habitat," and at the time, I didn't really know. It wasn't a concrete business idea. It was more of a concept, of a loose sort of feeling. I knew that it was a place where I wanted art and interior design to coexist. I just didn't know exactly.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that was the original, the original sort of idea. And then throughout it took a few moves, a few shifts in both into professionally and personally to kind of really get clear on the idea, and it became much more about homes and designing spaces where people were uh, you know came to be grounded and to feel
Yeah.
safe,
Yeah.
and to feel like their identity was being expressed, and a lot of that has to do with my sort of nomadic existence in the past 20
Sure.
odd years. So that's kind of how the business evolved and started.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
Yeah,
Dubai is such a perfect place for that kind of a practice.
yeah,
So many people who live there are expats and, they've, for whatever reasons of their own, they've moved,
yeah,
out of, their home country and, decided to establish roots in Dubai, whether it's temporary or
yeah,
for a longer, right? And
yeah,
so
yes, absolutely,
yeah, it's a very
absolutely.
transitory city and,
It is, and
um,
it's moving away. I mean, it was extremely transitory, but I think increasingly we're starting to see more people choose to make it more their home. So that's been really an interesting shift to witness as well. Um,
oh, wow.
and and you do have more of a mixed community between the very transient and people. It starts as transient initially, and 10 years
Yeah.
later, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm still here. So I guess this is home. So,
Well, and it's funny you say that because when I moved to Dubai, it was supposed to be for 3 months. And then
yeah.
it became 6 months, and then it became 9 months, and then I was there almost 6 years later until I
Yeah, it
finally
goes like
decided.
this, right?
Oh, it
Yeah.
definitely does. It definitely does. So, and you're originally, I mean, because I know you've moved and you were in Canada, you were in New York, I mean, which is where
Mhm.
we met. And
Yes.
then, I mean, I know you've jumped around in a whole bunch of different places, but
Yeah.
where did you grow up? In which part of the world?
So I was born in Amman in Jordan, and I grew up mostly in Bahrain. Um,
Oh,
so
okay.
that's kind of my childhood,
Okay.
um, and then did my undergrad in architecture in the UK,
Okay.
and then moved to New York, which is where we met,
Yeah.
Toronto, and then Amman, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, so a little bit of Italy in between. So it's quite mixed.
Right. Oh, wow. That is very mixed. And and now you've been practicing in Dubai for how many years?
So I moved to Abu Dhabi first, and I was there in 2014, and then moved to Dubai in 2016. So
Okay.
I've been here for coming on to 10 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Wow, that's
yeah,
amazing. I was wondering though, so did you always envision having a practice and
yeah,
developing this
yeah.
creative, business of the year kind of entrepreneurial lifestyle? And was this always
Yeah,
something that
I
you
mean,
dreamed about?
I have always wanted to have my own thing. It's more the autonomy of it and the freedom um, that drove me, but I wasn't sure what it would be. So the feeling was there, but I wasn't always sure exactly how it would manifest into a viable business or into how does it actually serve people, create some sort of impact. So that's the part that kind of took a while to figure out, so to speak. And to figure it out, I did do a lot of experimenting with different facets of the interior design and art industries.
Oh, okay. Isn't it interesting how all of the different things we go through in our career and evolutions of our life, it sort of, if you just sort of let it lead you, um, it kind of takes you back to this place where you've always kind of known. And when you
Yeah.
look back, you say, oh, all of the little fingerprints and the breadcrumbs have been
Yeah.
there all along, you know?
Yes.
And
Yes.
what was that like for you? What were some of the breadcrumbs and the things that really helped to inform kind of what your practice is today?
So, I mean, there are so many. It's exactly like you said, right? It's breadcrumbs, and then there's. It's only when you pause and look back that you realize how those pieces kind of fit together to lead you to where you are now.
Yeah.
So that in itself is quite a magical experience, and I definitely suggest, if you like, you've clearly done it, but but anyone listening, that's such an eye opening thing, because you don't always realize what the experiences are that you've had that have led you to where you are, um, and for me, I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, but for me, the seed was planted when, as a teenager, I witnessed my grandmother visiting the home in Palestine where she was forcibly removed in the 40s, and that experience made me realize the importance of home, and the impact of home on identity.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. I also realized in that moment it wasn't about politics or history or real estate. It really was that sense of identity, and the role of home in that was so fundamental that when it's
Yeah.
taken away from you, something is shaken.
Yeah.
And then simultaneously, because I was effectively I spent my childhood as an expatriate, right? Living in Bahrain, growing up in an English school. Um, so that experience showed me that it was possible to create a new identity. Because
Oh,
I felt a lot
wow.
more like home was, at that time in my life when I was a teenager, I was quite detached from the past, the history. I didn't think it was so relevant, like all of that stuff. But I realized, home for me at that time, I would always say, oh, it's Amman, because that's where I was born,
Right.
and that's
And
how.
so, sorry, really
Yeah,
quick. So going back, so you weren't aware growing up in Oman that there was this whole other kind of family story of
I was
that
aware
was
of it. I was
okay.
aware of it. I just felt a bit detached from it,
Got it.
because it
Okay.
wasn't my reality, and I was a
Sure.
teenager
Yeah.
or younger, So
Yeah.
so I was definitely aware of it, but I was quite detached from it, especially growing
Okay.
up. I wasn't growing up in Amman. I was growing up in Bahrain, which is so I was already an expatriate uh, in a country which,
Yeah.
where,
Yeah.
with such a vibrant expatriate community that, everyone sort of, it was like a one word answer to where you're from. So so a man was a much easier
Yeah.
conclusion, you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
and a bit more accurate to my actual lived experience. So that
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of how it was.
Sure.
And only, growing up and then experience and hearing other people's stories, and meeting people from all walks of life all around the world. I mean, for me, I love that. And
Yeah.
I this is one of the things I love about being in Dubai. It is very multicultural. um,
Yeah.
and I do also tend to be attracted to cities for that reason, like living in cities, because they have quite a rich melting pot of cultures and
Yeah.
diversity,
Yeah.
and that really inspires me. So, and I strive to be in environments like that.
Yeah.
So that's always driven my choices, even of moving.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally get it. It's definitely such a unique mix. When I mean, even from the time I was there, it was really a very, it's now become a world hub, right? And
Yeah,
so having, the opportunity to work in such a diverse cultural environment,
yeah,
just when I was working out there, you're literally, you could be sitting around a table full of people from 12 different countries. And
yeah.
it's
Yes,
quite
yes.
amazing. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I want to go back to that, that moment that you and your family went to your grandmother's home, and you said it was like a seed that was planted and helped kind of your understanding or this alignment in who you are to the sense of identity and what does home mean, and
Yeah.
what was that journey like for you to go from when the seed was planted to it sort of crystallizing, and how that became what Inhabitat is and what you do for your clients today?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking decades, right? So it is it's definitely
Sure.
me,
A
but
process.
yeah, yeah, but definitely, a big part of that journey has been um, in my own moves and looking back again, more breadcrumbs, right?
Yeah.
Looking back, what are the things I would do in each place, including university accommodation, which is like awful, right?
Oh,
Awful.
yeah.
but, but including at uni, accommodation and things like whether it's, I don't know, hanging a weird like sheet over a bed to just create an enclosure of some sort, or like
Yeah.
break the fire code, like all of that. But there's always been something that I've done in everywhere where I've moved that addressed the space that I was staying. Sometimes it was, in fact, all the time, it was as simple as taking a couple of objects or artworks, and I mean like small artworks that had some kind of meaning, or a postcard or
Mhm.
something, and I would just have these moments in my spaces, which obviously became a bit more sophisticated as I started to grow up and settle, but it was always something that was there throughout my journey of professional development and just moving to different places.
Isn't that funny how it's kind of just instinct, even when you're not, say, an interior designer, that we just know that to take things that represent home for us when we
Yeah.
move to a new place. I just find that really, it just kind of popped in my head how when, like you said, when I moved to college and I moved away from home, I brought a few things that reminded me of home
Yes.
and helped me feel like this is a grounding place and this is my safe space, right? My room
Yes.
or my
Mm.
little corner where my bed was, where this other side was for my roommate or whatever.
Yeah.
And I do think that's quite instinctive how people
Yeah.
do that.
And super, and that's actually one of the ways that we have quite a in-depth client survey when we onboard a client, and one of the ways that we really, because we strive to create a space that reflects who they are, a big part
Right.
of our process is getting to actually know who they are, right? So we do that using a lot of different questions, and one of the things that always intrigues me is what are the objects that they associate with home? And
Yeah.
that digresses every culture, financial status, everything, because everyone will have specific things that is their safe space, that has that sense of attachment and of home. I was recently watching a show, and I really can't remember what it was called, but one of the scenes in it, one of the actors is in charge of housing for refugees, and one of the statements that he was making in the as part of the in the show is that he doesn't understand. When these refugees arrive, okay, they've got some of the essentials like clothes and food and things like that, and they allow those into the housing, but they don't allow the non-essentials, and he wasn't understanding why they were even bringing them in, like random like bits of toys or objects or things like that. And I found that absolutely fascinating as a to think that even in those dire situations and circumstances, people still grab onto tangible expressions of who they are,
Ah.
and I just thought that was so interesting. Um,
Well, and
you know,
what you're saying reminds me of even, like with, refugees, of course, when they're, displaced. And then also, I mean, recently we had the fires here in LA. And
yes,
I mean, thousands and thousands of people were displaced. And,
yeah,
when you see the stories of the families, you see that the little kids taking their little stuffy, their thing that makes them feel like this was what represented home for me, or they're
Yes.
packing up the car, and you begin to start questioning what are the things that are essential, right? Like
Oh,
you're
so
saying,
true.
and then what's non-essential. But funnily enough, it's like sometimes a toy is very essential for like that emotional safety, or
Yeah.
maybe it's, a picture or a piece of something that was an
Yeah.
heirloom that is easy to take with you. And it's kind of
Yes.
funny how we begin to process that. And um, so how have you done that for your clients? And what's been that process like to kind of go through that journey with them? And I'm sure not everyone's going through, this a traumatic
No.
displacement, or,
No.
like some of them
Yeah.
are just simply moving to Dubai and
Yeah,
making,
exactly. They're
making a
starting a
new
new
home for them.
chapter and things like that. So no, no, no.
Yeah,
That's not. They're not going through that. But basically, I mean, I sort of alluded to that earlier in terms of the questions. I think that's really a key to ask the questions, which you're doing, right? So it's really asking lots of questions and just being curious about who they are, and sometimes asking questions that they might not necessarily expect.
Mm,
Um, because that really gives us a clue, or it just opens more facets into who they
yeah,
are. We're also
yeah,
multifaceted, and it's very difficult as a stranger, effectively coming in to design your home. You've got to sort of get all those facets. You've got to read them, and you've got to get a sense of them.
yeah,
So a big part of it is the questions. Of course, a part of it is actually meeting them, and you get a lot of information just from talking to someone, and being even in the same space as them.
yeah,
We also, if they're going through anything, like one of our clients. She was going through a divorce, and it was a very turbulent time in her life, and
of course. Yeah,
course, and she had two young boys, and they had joint custody. So she was uh, really anxious that their room in their dad's home would feel really playful and really calm and like home for them. And when we created their room, and she saw it, she burst into tears. And I think in that moment, I was just like, oh my God, this is so much more than picking pretty furniture.
yeah,
It's so much more than that. And that's actually, it really drives me every day to work on homes, because
yeah,
that's the most. I would say people spend most of their lives at home or at work, and
yeah,
post COVID, even that is, less so at work, but
yeah, yeah,
many people, right? So that was definitely an impactful moment in Habitat's
yeah.
history.
Well, and I totally resonate with what you're saying because, I've gone in and out of doing commercial in hospitality specifically and in doing residential as well. And that's always you know, I love designing hospitality for the experience and um, the story that you get to tell about the place and the cultures of the people.
Yes.
But when you're getting down to this really micro level of someone's home, it's a totally different, like a sense of fulfillment that
Yeah.
I haven't experienced in like a hospitality project necessarily. I mean, there's the satisfaction of seeing
Yeah.
transformation, right?
Yes,
But
yes, yes.
I definitely resonate with what you're saying because you begin to realize, oh wow, this really it means something for them. And when
Yeah.
there's that, especially when there's an emotional response, it doesn't always have to be over tears, but even just
Yeah.
the I can't believe this. This is
Yes.
amazing. I
Yeah.
love it. It's totally me. You
Yes, yes.
feel like, oh wow, I've impacted someone's life in a way that's really meaningful, right? And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
definitely one aspect of residential design that I've also really grown to appreciate.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
true. And with impact, sometimes it's not about huge, bold uh, actions or reactions. Even sometimes it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's the simple things, like you put a cushion on a sofa that someone is going to be resting their head on after a long day at work, and they just want to relax and watch their favorite show. Like,
Yeah.
is a moment, and that's so precious.
Yeah.
It's such a precious moment, and the way I see it is life is made up of these moments. That's what it is, right? So to
Totally.
really, like, just to be able to curate each of those moments, and contribute to that is a very special experience for me.
Yeah. So what I feel like might be hearing you say and kind of touching on is this sense of like how you're listening and kind of intuiting and preempting some of their own needs. And,
Mhm.
they probably wouldn't have even thought I would want to ask for a pillow here, right? And just to have that
Yeah.
ability to understand, right? And that the the needs of your clients and the people who you're serving.
Yes.
Um, I was wondering how much of your art comes into the picture in the work that you're doing.
Yeah. So, it's always been for me such a dance. And for the longest time, I was trying to define if I'm an artist or an interior designer. I somehow, for some reason, I decided that there needs to be a rule, and they couldn't coexist, right?
Yeah,
And then one day I realized, I'm like, why am I making it so painful for myself? They are both parts of who I am. So who is making me choose? Nobody.
yeah,
It was just, I don't know where I got the notion from, but it was causing me a lot of pain.
yeah,
And so I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Let's throw it away. so
yeah,
I realized that, with my art practice, the way that I see it, it's more about my own pure expression. It's my place to play, to experiment. If I do set myself loose themes that help to structure the practice. But that's pretty much it. Like, I don't have any, requirements or specifications or anything like that.
yeah,
Whereas, with interior design, it's a totally different ball game. And with those, it's more about the client. It's more about how they want to live. You're much more bound by timelines and budgets and things like that, and those are all awesome, as a part of a game, and part of a play that all comes together. But it's a very different it's a very different skill set, and it's a very different area. So for me, I enjoy both, right? So I chose to do both, and with my interior projects, sometimes I do have existing art collections that, if they happen to work with a client's story, and in their project. I recently had a client where we were doing some art consulting and accessories, and they happened to see one of my artworks. I was not trying to sell it or anything. They happened to see it and they loved it. So they ended up buying two from the same collection, because it just spoke to
oh
them
wow,
with their space. But there's
yeah,
no formal tie. I often actually, in my interior design projects, almost prefer to work with artists, because, especially if something is being commissioned, I'll work with artists to commission an artwork, or just see what's available. Obviously, that depends on a lot of factors.
yeah,
And then with my art practice, sometimes it's the simple things, like, getting really well versed with colors and playing with color palettes. Like, for me, I
yeah,
love mixing paint, and
okay,
when you mix paint, it gives you, an understanding of how color works, different than seeing, pre determined palettes and things.
yeah,
So that for me is a direct link between the two worlds. Um, Another one is more theme based. So at the moment, I have a new art collection just starting. So it's literally in the very early stages of
yeah,
ideation, and but the word is unmapped. Like, that's the theme. So
oh
so that's
interesting,
obviously exploring ideas of boundaries and borders and cross, a more sort of ethereal or nomadic existence, and what does that mean. So it all kind of ties into this idea of identity and things, but it's a more abstract exploration than the interior design practice.
Yeah. Well, and I can see how some of that theme, even of the nomadic theme, even like traces all the way into your own kind of childhood and
Yeah,
story and life of that region
yeah, yeah.
and the culture. Um, how have you found, in our creative business, it's so easy to just feel stretched and challenged with always coming up with a new idea or some new form of inspiration. Have you found the practice of integrating art into your kind of day-to-day life has brought up a different perspective that you hadn't really considered as a solution to the challenge at hand?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a really interesting dance, right? I like to use that word because that is how I see it.
Mhm.
We live in a world where we're literally being bombarded with stuff, input from every angle, right? And it's at work, and it's in your social life, and it's in your personal life, and it's all over the place. And I mean, you just open your phone and you're bombarded with stuff. And I think, and there is an incredible pace that we are able to, from a productivity standpoint, it's incredible, right? Like, we've never been as fast and as productive as we are today.
Yeah,
Um, but it's important to ask at what cost, and to take a step back. And creativity only happens when you're able to breathe. You can only do so much
yeah,
creatively when you're there's a magic balance of pressure when it comes to creativity. You can't
yeah.
be so relaxed and have absolutely no deadline or nothing to think. You've got to
Right.
give yourself something to work to. You've got to give yourself a bit of pressure and a bit of push, but not
Yeah,
so much that you just can't think. Like, it's getting that balance right, and it will look a little bit different to different people, but um, but I also but it is definitely, I think, definitely creativity needs room to breathe. You need to be
yeah,
able to, and what I mean is, like, you might create something and it might be great the first time round. It might look amazing or whatever, but it's only when you step back and then come back to it with a fresh pair of eyes, where you've had moments for it to simmer in the back of your mind, that you really are able to push it up to the next level. And you can't do that if you've got a 2 day deadline on something. Um, so it's really understanding when to take a step back and
yeah,
which moments to push as well.
yeah. Striking that balance is such a struggle. I
Yeah.
definitely have, you know, I feel like I've had to intentionally take breaks in my life. So, where do you get your inspiration from?
You know what I learned about inspiration is, um, we've I feel like we've been conditioned to think inspiration is this, lightning bolt that just kind of strikes you, and you're like, "Ooh, light bulb!" And I'm gonna go and I'm gonna create this masterpiece, or whatever it is, whatever that
Yeah,
masterpiece would be. Um, but it's not that. It's something that is very quiet. Of course, it can be that sometimes you can look at something or hear or listen to something, and feel immediately inspired and motivated by it. But a lot of times, I think it's really important to really train your eye and your mindset to be open to being inspired. And, you know, sometimes, like, I journal every morning, and I'll sit up. my dining table downstairs and look out the window. And it's not a very exciting view. It's a concrete wall, but there's a gap. There's a gap in there, and in that gap, I can see a piece of the sky and a tree that's in my neighbor's backyard, and that's a small vignette that
Yeah.
inspires me. There is something
Yeah.
inspiring about how the light hits at that time in the morning, and you've got to allow yourself to be inspired by, you're walking on the sidewalk and there's a grate or the cobblestones or whatever is surface that you're walking on. So inspiration lives everywhere, and it's all about perspective. It's all about um, training your eyes also. I mean, inspiration for me, because I'm visual, very visual being, it's
Mhm.
about training your eye to see things, to see the beauty in the everyday.
Yeah.
And with some people it's more about hearing and listening, so it depends how you function. But whatever that key is for you, it's about really exercising it and learn how to see things in a new light. And a lot of
Yeah.
it is mindset
Yeah.
as
Yeah. I love that. The other day I was walking my dog and I just noticed that there was a tree and like its bark, the way it
yeah.
was peeling was so beautiful. And, because we're now in between these seasons,
Yes, yes.
some of the trees are like the bark is changing. And then I looked and it's planted in the middle of the sidewalk, which is so random and weird, but it is. And the tree kind of like, you kind of just think of how it puts itself into the ground, but they had, left a square kind of a dirt patch where they decided to plant the tree and then build the sidewalk around it.
Yeah.
But the tree trunk and the roots had literally filled up that entire square perimeter. And I just thought, I never seen a tree do that before. And I
Amazing. Yeah.
literally took photos of it just on my walk. And it
Yeah.
was one of those moments where I thought, oh, why I haven't seen this before is because I'm always on my phone reading emails, trying to multitask while I'm walking my dog, And there's these things that
Exactly.
we do that make us feel hurried because there's so many. I'm constantly trying to multitask to squeeze more into my day. And
Yes, yes.
then the one morning I was tired and I didn't want to look at my phone. So I kind of just kept walking and I happened to turn down a block that I don't normally take.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't a totally adventurous deviation. It was
Yes,
just
yes.
a normal street that I normally don't go down. I just went an extra block and I walked down that street and I thought,
Yeah.
this is really what a wonderful little moment. And I showed my
Yeah.
husband and you kind of have these little moments of awe and kind of wonder and
Yeah.
curiosity. And those are all, I love the expression of those things that you're talking about because
Yeah,
it's very
and
much,
that's inspiration. All of that is inspiration. You talked about varying your routine. That's a great hack to getting out of a rut, or when you feel you're just demotivated or down. You just take a different route
yeah,
than you normally would.
yeah.
For me, I love going like to the beach, or having a cup of coffee sometimes just reframes everything. Like good coffee is magical. So
And sometimes just being awoken by caffeine sparks an inspiration.
exactly. Yeah. So
Oh,
I think
so
inspiration
fun.
definitely lives in the little things more often in the grand moments.
Yeah, that's so true. I love that. And I've often found that when I'm hiking, if I'm in a totally new
Yeah.
kind of a part of the world, I'll be hiking and I'll see kind of the way that the rocks layer and,
Yeah.
the way that the soil and the sediment sort of have created these layered effects.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just marvel at it and I look at it and I'll take a photo of it. And my friends are like, what are you taking a photo of? I was like, the rock,
Yes. Yes.
the dirt. But
The
it's
layers.
like, but you're totally right. It's the lens in which you're seeing, the perspective that you bring to the moments of and how you're showing up to be present, right? I think you're really onto something there. So I love how you were sharing a little bit about the morning, and maybe just to kind of wrap up our time, I loved
Mm.
that you kind of gave us a little glimpse into maybe some of the routines that
Mm.
you like to practice and engage in.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of things that I do right to keep the creativity going, definitely the journaling. You know something, I was always really cynical about journaling, and I thought it was just one of those Instagram things that that you're supposed to do, that no one does. You're supposed to kind of do it. And then I read a book called The Artist's Way, and it was
Oh, yeah, I have that too.
such a game changer. And
Yeah,
effectively, the morning pages is an exercise that, when I have a sort of vision as to how something can manifest, I get really inspired about doing it. So then I
yeah,
was like, oh, okay, now I know what the reason is behind journaling and morning pages. So I started.
yeah,
It just was such a game changer for not just my creativity, but also my emotional state, my character, like the way that I was able to process things. And actually, for a while, because I had traveled and moved and stuff, I stopped and I noticeably saw how it impacted my being. So I restarted because I was like, no, this definitely has a very tangible result for me in my life. So
yeah,
both creativity, personally. So that's definitely something I do. I don't want to say every single morning, but most mornings. And then coffee is a big one. So I've actually cut down how much coffee I drink during the day, but my first cup of coffee is sacred. So so coffee is a big one. Traveling is huge,
yeah.
especially traveling, and I love going all sorts of places, beaches, jungles. Um, Most recent trip I took was Toronto, which was actually, when did I go? End of August. Last week of August, and I loved being there. I just loved it. I loved walking in the city. I spent a lot of time in the distillery district, which is a place that is a very sort of artsy. There's a lot of really cool, like, cafes are my thing. I love sitting in a cafe, people watching. I have a soft spot for almond chocolate croissants as well, which which is like, you know, I'm into healthy
Well,
eating and all that, but not when it comes to almond chocolate croissants. So,
well, I mean, who can resist?
right, right. So there's always that. What else are things? I work out like 5, 6 times a week just because I feel like that's such a great release, like physically.
Yeah.
Um, what else? What are some
Well,
things?
I think everything you're saying is
Yeah,
really, it's like trying to just, you know, um, it's like self-care, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
that idea of self-care, I don't know. I don't know about you, but I know for me early out in my career, all it just was pushing and pushing and pushing. And if there was something that, I'm sure there was some aspect of, you know, I need to prove myself or, some standard of whatever that that I was following some system that was put in my head,
yeah.
kind of breaking free from that and coming back to myself, right? And
Yes,
through
yes,
practices of self-care and these morning routines and things have definitely, I feel like it's been a game changer for me. Really
totally.
totally transformative for my own, not just my own like work and how I show up in my creative practice, but just like you said, like personally on a mental health level and to be a body in motion. So I'm not
Yeah,
just like stagnant, like you're
yeah,
saying. And
yeah, yeah.
it's definitely been a learning curve for me though.
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. And I think more than even self care, it's also a big part of it is through that you get self awareness as well.
Oh, 100, I totally agree. Yeah. 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 So, well, this has been such a wonderful conversation, and I just love hearing and reconnecting with you and hearing about this wonderful business that's like so full of soul It is
Oh,
I mean, it really is. It's a really soulful approach to your practice, and I am just really grateful that we had this opportunity to connect. And thank you so much for sharing
oh,
your
me.
world and how you are helping to create, a world in which your clients are able to feel like they're building a home and a new sense of identity for themselves and a sense of connection. There's so many good things there. And congratulations again on your award. It's such a huge
Oh, thank
accomplishment.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I've really, it's been such an honor and a pleasure to be here with you this morning. And yeah, it's really, it means a lot. It means a lot to hear that. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that we were able to carve out this time and
Me
able
too. Me too.
to, have this connection. Thank
Same,
you.
same here. Thanks, Sharon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love for you to join our creative tribe. Follow, like, and subscribe to help this community grow. Your support helps me to tell the stories of the creatives who bring soul to our world and create meaningful experiences. Thank you for being here and keeping the circle of creativity alive and connected. I'm so grateful to each and every one of you.